It was past midnight, the cabin wrapped in silence, when he stepped closer. His breath was uneven, his hands trembling as if holding back something unstoppable. In that dark room, I realized this wasn't just friendship, it was forbidden desire. What happened next would test every boundary, and change my life forever. The night was colder than usual, a kind of stillness that pressed against the cabin walls and seeped through the cracks of the old wood. Outside, the trees swayed like shadows come alive, and the distant hoot of an owl reminded me how far away I was from the rest of the world. I had chosen this isolation, retreating here to write, to think, to figure myself out. What I didn't expect was that someone else would step into my solitude and change everything. It began with a knock. Not the hurried pounding of someone desperate, but a slow, hesitant tap against the cabin door. At first, I thought I imagined it. Who could possibly be out here at midnight, miles away from town? I froze, listening. Then came the second knock, soft, deliberate, and oddly fragile. With cautious steps, I pulled open the door, and that's when I saw him. He stood in the rain, water streaming down his shoulders, his plain white shirt plastered to his chest. His dark suspenders clung tightly to him, and his curly brown hair hung wet across his forehead. His eyes, deep, conflicted, almost frightened, met mine for a brief second before he looked down. He didn't say a word, not even a greeting. "Are you okay?" I asked, unsure if he even spoke English the way I did. He didn't answer. Instead, he shifted nervously, water dripping from his sleeves onto the wooden porch. That's when I noticed his clothes, Amish. Plain, simple, traditional. The kind I'd only seen when driving past their farms, never up close like this. "You're soaked. Come in," I said, stepping aside. For a moment, he hesitated, as if crossing the threshold meant breaking a rule carved into his very soul. But then he stepped inside, his shoes squeaking softly against the cabin floor. I closed the door behind him, shutting out the storm, and the silence between us grew heavier. I handed him a towel. His fingers brushed mine when he took it, cold, trembling. He didn't dry himself right away. Instead, he clutched the towel like it was an anchor, his chest rising and falling as though he carried a weight he couldn't put into words. "My name's Daniel," I offered, trying to ease the tension. "You don't have to be afraid. You're safe here." He finally lifted his gaze, his lips parting slightly. "Eli," he whispered, his voice low and careful, like a secret he wasn't supposed to share. "Eli." The name lingered in the room, fragile and unspoken. I motioned for him to sit by the fire. He lowered himself onto the rug, his wet clothes steaming as the heat touched him. For a while, we just sat there, the crackle of the flames filling the silence between us. Every now and then, I caught him glancing at me, his eyes darting away quickly whenever I noticed. It was clear he wasn't just lost in the rain. He was running from something. "You don't have to tell me why you're here," I said gently. "But if you want to, I'll listen." He gripped the towel tighter, jaw clenched. No words came, only silence thick with unspoken truths. But even without him saying it, I understood. I had seen the way his eyes lingered on me, the way he held himself back. It wasn't just the storm he had escaped, it was something deeper, something forbidden. I remembered the way the Amish community guarded their rules. No technology, no outside influence, no indulgence in worldly desires. To them, love like mine, love between men, was not just frowned upon, it was impossible. Yet here he was, sitting in my cabin, close enough that I could hear the uneven rhythm of his breath. The firelight painted his face in golden shadow, and for a moment, I forgot about rules, boundaries, consequences. All I saw was Eli, the boy who appeared in the rain, silent and needing, yet carrying an intensity in his eyes that spoke louder than any confession. I found myself leaning forward, not to touch him, but to see him more clearly. He noticed, his breath catching. The air thickened, charged with something neither of us dared name. Then, just as suddenly, he stood up. "I should go," he murmured, though his voice lacked conviction. "You don't have to," I replied. "The storm's still going. Stay the night. It's safer." His shoulders rose and fell with a heavy breath. He turned toward the door, hand brushing the wooden frame. For a heartbeat, I thought he would leave. But then he stopped. His head bowed, curls dripping down his cheeks, and his voice trembled when he said, "I can't go back." The words hung between us like a confession. I stepped closer, not too close, but enough that he could feel I wasn't going to push him away. "Then don't," I whispered. "You don't have to go anywhere tonight. Just stay." He looked at me then, really looked at me, as if searching my face for proof that I meant it. And when he finally let out a shaky breath, I saw it, the smallest flicker of relief in his eyes. That night, Eli stayed. He didn't speak much, but his silence said more than words ever could. He curled up on the rug by the fire, wrapped in the blanket I gave him. I watched as sleep finally softened the tension in his face, his lips parting slightly, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. I should have gone to bed. But I didn't. I sat there, staring at the boy who had walked into my life from the storm, wondering why fate had brought him here, and knowing, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. Morning came slowly, a pale wash of light spilling across the wooden floorboards of the cabin. For a moment, I wondered if the night before had only been a dream, the hesitant knock, the boy standing in the rain, the unspoken confession that hung between us. But then I turned and saw him, curled up by the fire, his body cocooned in the blanket I had given him. His chest rose and fell softly, the storm's harshness replaced by the steady rhythm of his breath. Eli. The name echoed in my mind again, carrying a weight I couldn't shake. I studied him quietly, afraid to wake him. The light painted his face in hues of gold, catching on the curve of his cheekbone and the softness of his lips. He looked younger this way, untouched by the heaviness he carried when his eyes were open. I busied myself with the morning, stoking the fire and setting a kettle to boil. The sound must have stirred him because I heard the rustle of the blanket. When I turned, his eyes were open, wide and uncertain, as though waking up here surprised him as much as it did me. "Good morning," I offered gently. He blinked at me, as though deciding whether or not to return the greeting. Finally, in a quiet voice, he said, "Morning." It was only a single word, but it felt like a small victory, a crack in the silence he'd held so tightly to last night. I poured him tea and slid the cup across the table. He hesitated before taking it, cradling it in both hands. His fingers trembled slightly, not from the heat, but from something deeper, something internal. "You slept okay?" I asked. He nodded, eyes fixed on the steam rising from the cup. "You don't have to stay quiet," I added. "You can say whatever you're comfortable with. Or nothing at all. It's your choice." His lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, though it faded as quickly as it came. "I'm not used to talking much," he admitted. I leaned back, watching him. "That's okay. We'll start small." For a long while, silence returned, but it was different this time, less heavy, less fragile. The fire crackled, the kettle hissed, and outside, the world thawed from the storm. Eli's shoulders began to loosen, his breathing less uneven. "Why are you here?" I finally asked, though I kept my tone soft, giving him room to refuse. He froze, gripping the cup tighter. His eyes darted to mine, then away again. "I couldn't stay there," he said at last. His voice cracked on the word there. I didn't press him, but I could guess. I had read enough, seen enough, to know how suffocating rules could feel when your heart wanted something different. "Eli," I said carefully, "you don't have to tell me everything. Just know that whatever brought you here, you're not alone anymore." His eyes flickered with something, relief, maybe, or disbelief. He set the cup down and leaned back slightly, as though the weight pressing on him had shifted, even if only by an inch. The day unfolded quietly. I went about my chores, splitting wood, sweeping the cabin floor, fetching water, and Eli followed, offering help without being asked. He worked with a kind of quiet determination, his hands steady and skilled. It reminded me of what I'd heard about the Amish, that they were raised to build, to farm, to create with their hands. When I showed him how to stack the logs neatly, his fingers brushed mine, and for a moment, the world stilled. His eyes darted up to meet mine, wide and startled, as though the simple touch had betrayed something he wasn't ready to say. "Sorry," he murmured, pulling back. "Don't be," I said softly, though my heart was racing far faster than it should have. We continued our work, the silence between us no longer awkward but charged with something unspoken. Every glance, every accidental brush of skin, carried weight. It was like standing on the edge of something vast, waiting to see if we'd fall, or if we'd jump. By the afternoon, we sat on the porch, the woods stretching out endlessly before us. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. Birds chirped cautiously, and the scent of damp earth lingered in the air. "Where I come from," Eli began suddenly, his voice breaking the quiet, "we don't do this." I turned to him, careful not to move too quickly. "Do what?" "Talk. Stay. Be," he struggled for the word, his brow furrowing. "Be close." His admission hung in the air like a fragile thread. I let it rest there, not cutting it, not pulling it tighter. "Maybe you needed a place where you could," I said. He looked at me then, really looked, his eyes searching mine. The fear was still there, but beneath it, something else flickered, longing, curiosity, the dangerous pull of something he had been taught to deny. I swallowed, grounding myself. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him he didn't have to be afraid. But I also knew that pushing too soon could break whatever fragile trust was forming between us. "Instead," I said, "you don't have to be anything here, Eli. Not the person they expect you to be. Not even the person you think you should be. Just yourself." The words seemed to land somewhere inside him. His chest rose and fell as though the air had thickened. Finally, he whispered, "I don't even know who that is." I smiled faintly. That's okay. We'll figure it out together. For the first time, he didn't look away. His gaze held mine, steady and unflinching, as if daring himself to believe me. And in that moment, I knew, whatever storm had brought Eli to my door, it was far from over. But maybe, just maybe, he had found a place where he could weather it. That night, as the fire burned low and shadows lengthened across the walls, Eli lingered instead of retreating to the blanket. We sat closer than before, the silence now heavy with something unspoken but undeniable. His hand rested inches from mine, his breath shallow. I could feel the tension in him, the push and pull of fear and desire. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I simply waited. Because sometimes, the most powerful choice you can make is to stay still and let the other person decide. And though he didn't take my hand that night, the way he looked at me said everything. The storm had ended outside, but inside, something far more dangerous had just begun. The third day after Eli arrived, the cabin no longer felt like mine alone. His presence seeped into every corner, quiet but undeniable, the way he folded the blanket neatly each morning, the way he moved soundlessly around the kitchen, the way he would pause at the window as if the forest outside held both freedom and danger. I found myself watching him more than I should, memorizing the tilt of his head, the curve of his shoulders beneath his plain linen shirt. He carried himself with restraint, as though every gesture had been trained into him. But every now and then, when he thought I wasn't looking, I caught glimpses of something raw, his lips parting slightly in wonder at the sight of a bird taking flight, or his fingers brushing the surface of the wooden table as if savoring the texture. He was a boy caught between worlds. And I was already too drawn to him. That morning, I decided to take him to the stream a short walk from the cabin. Come on, I said, grabbing 2 empty pails. It's easier than hauling water from the well. He followed without protest, though I noticed the way his eyes darted nervously through the trees, as though expecting someone to emerge and drag him back. The stream was alive with sunlight, the water glittering as it rushed over stones. I crouched to fill the first pail, and when I glanced up, I saw Eli standing at the edge, his shoes sinking into the damp earth. His eyes were fixed on the water, wide and shimmering. Beautiful, isn't it? I asked. He nodded slowly, almost reverently. We had one like this, back home. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and he froze, lips pressing shut. You don't have to hide that from me, I said gently. Whatever you left behind, it's still part of you. He shook his head, curls bouncing, droplets of stream spray catching in them. If I talk about it, it feels like it'll pull me back. I carried the filled pail toward him. Then only share what you're ready for. He looked at me, conflicted, then down at the water again. It wasn't just the rules. Or the chores. Or the way they watched everything you did. It was, his voice faltered. It was the way I felt. The way I looked at other boys. I knew I wasn't supposed to. But I couldn't stop. And every prayer, every warning, every punishment just made me feel broken. The admission hit me like a tremor. He hadn't said it outright, but he didn't need to. His shame was painted in every word. You're not broken, Eli, I said firmly. You're human. His throat bobbed, his eyes glistening. For a moment, I thought he might cry, but he only turned away, bending to scoop water with shaking hands. We walked back in silence, the weight of his confession hanging between us. Back at the cabin, he busied himself with chores, but I could tell his mind wasn't on the tasks. Mine wasn't either. Every time our eyes met, it felt like standing at the edge of something vast, waiting for a step neither of us dared to take. That evening, after supper, I found him sitting on the porch. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of rose and gold. He hugged his knees, staring out at the forest. Do you miss them? I asked, leaning against the doorframe. His jaw tightened. Yes. And no. I miss my little sister. I miss the way the field smelled after rain. But I don't miss the looks. Or the words. Or the fear. Fear of what? He glanced at me, his eyes locking onto mine with startling intensity. Fear of being seen. The air between us thickened. My pulse quickened, but I didn't look away. And here? I asked quietly. Do you still feel that fear? He hesitated. Then, almost imperceptibly, he shook his head. I moved closer, sitting beside him on the porch step. Our shoulders nearly touched, and the closeness sent a current through me. We sat in silence, watching the sun sink lower, until the first stars began to appear. I don't understand this, Eli whispered. Being here. Feeling this. His hand twitched against his knee, as if resisting the urge to move. You don't have to understand it right now, I said softly. Just, let yourself feel it. He turned his face toward me, eyes wide, lips parted. The evening light traced his features, and for one breathless moment, I thought he would close the distance between us. But then he looked away, burying his face in his arms. That night, I lay awake, staring at the wooden ceiling beams. The fire had burned low, but I could still see Eli on the rug, curled beneath the blanket. He shifted in his sleep, murmuring something I couldn't make out. I wanted to reach down, to soothe whatever dream unsettled him. But I stayed still, caught between desire and restraint. I knew what was happening. Slowly, inevitably, we were drawing closer, pulled by something stronger than either of us could deny. And yet, every step forward felt like crossing into dangerous territory. His world had told him this was wrong. My world had told me it was rare, fragile, easily broken. Still, I couldn't ignore the truth rising in me. I wanted him here. Not just for the night, not just for the storm. I wanted him in my days, in my mornings, in every quiet moment the cabin held. And judging by the way his eyes lingered on me when he thought I wasn't looking, he wanted the same. The next morning, I found him outside, barefoot in the grass, watching the mist lift from the trees. He turned when he heard me, and for the first time, he smiled, not faint, not fleeting, but real. It was like watching the sun break through clouds. And I knew, without question, that whatever lay ahead, conflict, fear, discovery, this boy was no longer just a guest in my cabin. He was part of me now, whether I was ready for it or not. The days following Eli's confession felt different, heavier somehow, as though every breath of air carried both promise and danger. Our routines had blended into a strange rhythm, chopping wood, preparing meals, fetching water from the stream, but beneath every ordinary task lingered an undercurrent neither of us could ignore. And yet, the outside world didn't stay silent for long. On the fourth morning, I noticed fresh wagon tracks cutting through the muddy trail near the cabin. They hadn't been there before. At first, I thought little of it. Hunters sometimes passed through these woods, but when I saw Eli's face pale at the sight, I realized it meant more. "They're looking," he whispered, his voice tight. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "My people." His jaw tightened, his hand clutching the axe handle so hard his knuckles whitened. "If they find me here," he trailed off, eyes darkening. I set down the bundle of wood I'd been carrying. "Eli, you don't have to go back. They can't force you. You don't understand." He turned to me, a storm raging in his eyes. "They don't just let you go. If they know I'm here with you." He stopped again, unable to say the rest, but I could hear it anyway. The threat. The shame. The punishment. For the first time since he'd arrived, I saw fear not just in his silence, but etched into every line of his body. That evening, the fear didn't fade. Eli paced inside the cabin while I tried to read, his steps quick and restless against the wooden floorboards. "You should let me leave," he blurted suddenly. I dropped the book, startled. "What are you talking about?" "They'll find me, Daniel. And when they do, it won't just be me. You'll be dragged into it." My chest tightened. "I don't care what they think. You're safe here." He shook his head violently, curls falling across his forehead. "You don't get it. To them, I'm already gone. If they know I've been with," he cut himself off, biting his lip, but the unspoken words hung heavy between us. "With you." I crossed the room slowly, not wanting to spook him. When I reached him, I spoke softly. "Eli, I'm not afraid of them. What I'm afraid of is losing you." His eyes flicked up to mine, wide and vulnerable. For a moment, the fear in them softened, replaced by something warmer. But just as quickly, he pulled back, as though ashamed of letting it show. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered, voice breaking. "It's wrong." The words cut deeper than I expected. Not because I believed them, but because I could see how much he did. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to Eli breathe on the rug beside the fire, each rise and fall of his chest a reminder of the storm between us. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the distance, to show him that what we had wasn't wrong, that it was real, human, necessary. But the invisible wall of his upbringing held him back, and I couldn't tear it down for him. Sometime after midnight, I heard him stir. His voice, low and fractured, broke the silence. "Do you ever wish you were normal?" The question caught me off guard. Normal? Like them. Able to marry a woman. Have children. Live without this. His words trembled as if confessing a sin. I sat up, my chest heavy. "No, Eli. I used to. But then I realized, what's normal for them isn't right for me. Pretending would have destroyed me." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, barely audible, "It's destroying me already." I wanted to hold him. To take away the weight crushing his spirit. But he turned away, curling deeper into the blanket, shutting me out with silence. The next day, tension hung thick as fog. We worked side by side, but Eli's eyes avoided mine, his shoulders tense. When I tried to make conversation, his answers were clipped, almost rehearsed. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Eli, talk to me. What's going on?" He slammed the axe into a log, breath ragged. "What's going on is that I don't belong here. With you. In this cabin. In this, he gestured wildly between us. This thing that's happening. I stepped closer, heart pounding. You think I don't see it? You think I don't feel it too? Eli, whatever this is, it's real. You can't keep pretending it's not. His chest heaved, his eyes burning with conflict. Real doesn't mean right. I shook my head. No. Real means true. And you've spent your whole life being told to hide the truth of who you are. But you don't have to hide it here. Not with me. For a moment, I thought I'd broken through. His lips parted, his breath shaky. But then he stepped back, shaking his head furiously. I can't, he whispered. If I let myself, I'll never go back. And there it was, the heart of the conflict. He was caught between the world he had fled and the one I offered. Between fear and freedom. Between loyalty and love. That night, the storm returned, not outside, but within. Eli stayed awake long after I'd gone to bed. I could hear him shifting, pacing, muttering words I couldn't make out. At one point, he even opened the cabin door, letting the cold night air sweep in. I rose, standing in the doorway. Where are you going? He froze, half in the shadows. His face was pale, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Nowhere, he said hoarsely, closing the door again. But the look in his eyes told me the truth. He wasn't just fighting the people he left behind. He was fighting himself. And I didn't know which battle would break him first. The morning broke with a brittle quiet, the kind that made every creak of the cabin feel louder than it should. Eli sat at the table, untouched bread in front of him, eyes fixed on the wood grain as if it held answers. I watched him, sensing the distance widening with every passing second. When he finally spoke, his voice was so faint I almost didn't catch it. They'll come closer. I set down my mug. The wagon tracks? He nodded slowly, jaw tight. If they were near yesterday, they'll return today. Or tomorrow. They won't stop until they know where I've gone. A chill ran through me. So, what do we do? He looked up, meeting my gaze for the first time all morning. You do nothing. If they find me, I'll go back. The words felt like knives. You don't mean that. His lips pressed into a thin line. You think I don't? You think I can just cut them off? My family, my whole world? I leaned forward, anger and desperation rising in equal measure. Eli, that world nearly broke you. You came here because you couldn't breathe there. Don't tell me you want to go back. His hands trembled, clutching the edge of the table. Wanting and needing aren't the same thing. By mid-afternoon, the woods confirmed his fear. From the cabin window, I spotted a pair of men on horseback in the distance, their plain hats unmistakable even through the trees. They didn't approach, but they lingered, as if searching for signs, scanning the forest floor for footprints, broken branches, any trace of him. Eli saw them too. His face drained of color. It's them. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. They'll know I'm here, he whispered. And then, what happens to you? I don't care about me. Well, I do. His voice cracked, harsher than I'd ever heard. He stood abruptly, pacing the cabin. Daniel, don't you see? I'm dragging you into something you shouldn't be part of. You don't know what they're capable of when they feel betrayed. Then don't betray yourself, I shot back, stepping closer. You're not just running from them, Eli, you're running from yourself. And you can't keep doing that forever. He stopped, back turned to me, shoulders tense. His silence felt louder than any words. That night, the silence between us grew unbearable. We sat near the fire, flames flickering shadows across the walls. Eli stared into the fire, expression unreadable. Finally, I broke the quiet. You're scared. I get it. But don't push me away because of it. Don't punish yourself for wanting something different. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. It's not just wanting, Daniel. It's sin. That's what they'll say. That's what I was taught since I was a boy, that this feeling is the devil whispering. I felt my chest tighten. And do you believe that? He turned then, eyes glistening, torn between shame and longing. When I look at you, no. But when I think of them, my father, my brothers, my community, yes. I hear their voices even when they're not here. I rose, moving to kneel in front of him. Then listen to mine instead. Because my voice is telling you this isn't wrong. It's human. It's love. His breath hitched. His eyes searched mine, desperate for something to hold on to. For a moment, I thought he'd let me in. But then he shook his head, standing abruptly, retreating to the other side of the room. You don't understand, he muttered. You can't. And just like that, the fragile thread snapped. The next morning, I woke to find the cabin door ajar. Panic surged through me. I rushed outside, scanning the misty clearing. At first, I thought he'd gone, vanished back to the world he feared yet felt bound to. But then I spotted him near the stream, crouched low, hands buried in his hair. I approached slowly, heart hammering. Eli. He didn't look up. I can't stay. I knelt beside him, fighting the lump in my throat. Then tell me why you're still here. His hands dropped, revealing eyes rimmed red from tears. Because when I think of leaving, it feels like dying. The admission cut straight through me. I reached for his hand, and this time, he didn't pull away. His fingers, cold and trembling, curled weakly around mine. But when I think of staying, he whispered, it feels like I'm betraying everything I ever knew. That's not betrayal, Eli. That's freedom. He shook his head, tears spilling. You make it sound simple. But it's not. Nothing about this is simple. The following days blurred into an uneasy waiting game. Every sound in the woods set Eli on edge. Every crack of a branch, every distant echo of a voice, pulled him tighter into himself. At night, though, when the fire dimmed and silence pressed close, his defenses slipped. He'd inch closer, not quite touching but near enough that I could feel the warmth of his body. Near enough that I knew the battle wasn't over, not with me, not with himself. One night, as the firelight danced on his face, he whispered so softly I almost missed it. Do you ever wish I'd never shown up? The question stunned me. Never. Not for a second. He exhaled shakily. Even if it ruins you? It won't ruin me, I said firmly. But it might save you. His eyes glistened, searching mine, and for the briefest second, I saw surrender there, an acknowledgement that what he felt was more powerful than the fear binding him. But just as quickly, it vanished, swallowed by the weight of his past. On the sixth evening since the men appeared, Eli startled awake at the sound of hooves in the distance. He rushed to the window, pale as moonlight. They're closer, he breathed. I joined him, heart pounding as I caught sight of lanterns moving between the trees. Not one, but three. They weren't wandering anymore. They were searching. Eli backed away from the window, shaking his head. I have to go. No, my voice cracked with urgency. Not like this. You're not ready. You'll lose yourself. I already have, he whispered, tears streaming. And if they find me here with you, you'll lose everything too. He turned, grabbing his coat, fumbling with the buttons in his panic. I rushed forward, grabbing his wrist. Eli, look at me. He froze, trembling. Slowly, he lifted his gaze. His eyes were wild, torn, desperate. You don't have to face them alone, I said, my voice fierce, unwavering. Not anymore. Not ever. For the first time, he didn't argue. But the fear in his eyes told me the fight was far from over. The night carried a heavy weight, as though the air itself knew something was about to break. Eli and I sat in silence, both staring at the flickering firelight, but neither of us really saw it. His hands clenched around the mug I'd given him hours earlier, untouched and long gone cold. They're here, he said finally, voice hollow. Closer every night. I can feel it. I tried to stay calm, but my pulse thundered in my ears. You don't know that for sure. He looked up, eyes wild. Daniel, I grew up with them. I know how they move. How they look for someone who's gone. They won't stop until they find me. The words sank like stones between us. His fear wasn't just in his voice anymore, it was in the way he shook, the way his shoulders tightened with every sound outside the cabin walls. I leaned forward, desperate to ground him. Eli, listen to me. You came here for a reason. Don't throw that away now. His lips trembled. And if staying here destroys you? It won't. You don't know them, he snapped, finally standing, pacing the cabin. If they find me with you, Daniel, they'll hate you. They'll hate me even more. And it won't matter what I want. They'll drag me back, and I'll have no choice. His voice cracked, raw and broken. I stood, following him across the room, but he turned away, fists clenched. Eli. My tone was firm. You do have a choice. Right here. Right now. He froze, back to me, shoulders trembling. You don't understand, if I choose you, I lose everything I've ever known. I stepped closer, my voice softening. And if you choose them, you lose yourself. The silence that followed was brutal. He finally turned, eyes shining with unshed tears. Why can't I stop thinking about you? Why does it feel like every breath I take near you is the only real breath I've ever had? And why does that make me hate myself? The confession ripped through me. I reached for his face, cupping his cheek. He didn't pull away this time, but his body shook beneath my touch. You don't hate yourself, Eli, I whispered. You hate the cage they built around you. And cages can be broken. His lips parted as though he wanted to say something, but before he could, the sound of hooves echoed through the trees. Close. Too close. Eli stiffened, jerking away from me. He rushed to the window, peering out through the crack in the shutters. Lantern light flickered in the darkness, 3 riders, slowly combing the woods, their voices faint but sharp. They found us, Eli whispered. I felt the surge of adrenaline course through me. No. They found the woods. Not us. Not yet. He spun, panic etched across his face. Daniel, I have to go. If they catch me here, you'll— No. I cut him off, grabbing his wrist. If you walk out that door now, you'll never come back. You'll lose everything you've just begun to feel. Everything we've begun to feel. His chest rose and fell in jagged breaths. And if I stay, they'll drag me back anyway. You don't understand what they'll do to me. Then let them try, I said fiercely. Because I won't let them take you. The words hung in the air, raw and unshaken. The knocking came minutes later, loud, deliberate, and commanding. Eli went pale, trembling beside me. They know, he whispered. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Stay behind me. I opened the door just a crack. 3 men stood outside, bearded, hats pulled low, lanterns casting their faces in harsh shadows. Their eyes scanned past me, into the cabin. We're looking for a boy, the tallest said, voice low and gravelly. Eli. You seen him? My heartbeat thundered. I forced my voice steady. No one here but me. The man narrowed his eyes. Strange. His tracks lead this way. Eli pressed against the wall behind me, silent but shaking. I prayed they couldn't hear his uneven breaths. The second man leaned forward, his gaze sharp. You're alone out here? Yes, I lied flatly. Just me. The silence stretched long. I could feel Eli's fear radiating from behind me, every second a battle not to collapse. Finally, the men exchanged glances. If you see him, the tallest said slowly, you'd best send him home. For his soul. They turned, boots crunching on the frosted ground, lanterns fading into the trees. I shut the door quickly, locking it, my chest heaving. Eli slid down the wall, head in his hands, gasping for air. They'll be back, he whispered hoarsely. They'll never stop. I can't. I knelt in front of him, gripping his shoulders. Listen to me. You're not theirs anymore. You don't belong to them. You belong to yourself. And if you want, to me. His eyes lifted, wide and desperate. But what if I'm not strong enough? Then I'll be strong for both of us. The tears finally spilled down his cheeks. He collapsed forward into my arms, trembling, clinging to me as though I was the only solid thing left in his world. That night, neither of us slept. He stayed curled against me, his breath uneven, his body taut with the memory of their voices at the door. Every so often, he whispered fragments of thoughts, confessions torn from his chest. I used to dream of escaping. I thought I'd die if anyone ever knew the truth. I don't know if I can live in 2 worlds at once. I held him tighter each time, murmuring back, you don't have to. You only need one. Ours. But even as I said it, I knew the storm wasn't over. The men would return. Eli's fear wouldn't vanish overnight. And the battle inside him was far from won. Still, for the first time since he appeared at my cabin door, I felt a shift. His walls were cracking. His voice, though quiet, carried truth instead of denial. And when he finally looked up at me, eyes swollen and raw, his next words nearly unraveled me. Daniel. I don't want to run anymore. The cabin was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. The silence throbbed, filled with the ghost of fists on the door and voices that had nearly pulled Eli back into the world he feared. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands, while I stood near the fire, pacing, trying to steady my breath. They know where I am now, he murmured finally, his voice hollow. I stopped pacing, my heart sinking. Maybe. Or maybe they'll think you ran further into the woods. He shook his head slowly. No. They're patient. They'll circle back. They always do. His eyes lifted to mine, and I saw the war still raging in him, fear, guilt, longing. A storm no less fierce than the one that brought him to my door. Eli. My voice was softer now. I know you're scared. But you don't have to fight this alone anymore. His throat bobbed. That's just it, Daniel. I've always been alone, even when I was surrounded. I prayed every night for God to take these feelings away, but they never left. They only grew stronger. And now, his voice cracked. Now they're here, right in front of me. And I don't know how to carry them. I crossed the room slowly, every step deliberate. When I reached him, I knelt, my hands resting gently on his knees. His breath hitched, but he didn't pull away. You don't have to carry them, I whispered. You can let yourself feel them. For once. Without shame. Without fear. His eyes glistened, tears trembling at the edge. And if I do? What does that make me? I held his gaze steady. It makes you human. It makes you free. The words broke something inside him. His face crumpled, and he reached out suddenly, fingers gripping the front of my shirt as though I were the only thing keeping him from drowning. His forehead pressed against mine, breath ragged. I don't know how to stop wanting you, he confessed, voice trembling. My hand slid up to cradle his face, forcing him to look at me. Then don't. For a moment, he just stared, the weight of years of denial crashing down in the space between us. And then, slowly, hesitantly, he closed the distance. His lips brushed mine, a trembling, broken kiss that carried every ounce of fear and longing he'd buried his whole life. It was soft at first, uncertain, fragile. But when I deepened it, his restraint shattered. He pulled me closer, hands clutching at me desperately, as if afraid I might vanish if he let go. The dam inside him had finally cracked, and the flood poured out. We stumbled back onto the bed, his body pressing into mine, all hesitation burning away in the fire of his need. His kisses grew more urgent, more certain, as though each one was a rebellion against the life that tried to suffocate him. "Daniel," he whispered against my lips, the sound of my name breaking like a prayer. I threaded my fingers through his damp curls, pulling him closer. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." His eyes closed tightly, as if the words hurt and healed him at the same time. "I've wanted this for so long. Wanted you, someone like you. And I thought it meant I was broken." "You're not broken," I murmured, pressing kisses to the corner of his mouth, his jaw, his throat. "You're finally alive." He gasped softly, trembling under my touch. His hands, unsure at first, grew bolder, tracing the lines of my arms, my chest, as though mapping new territory he'd only ever dreamed of. Every touch carried the weight of discovery, of liberation. The storm outside returned, rain tapping against the windows, thunder rumbling through the mountains. But inside, the storm was ours. Heat. Breath. The breaking of chains that had held him all his life. When he finally pulled back, panting, his eyes searched mine, desperate, afraid. "Tell me this isn't wrong." I held his face firmly between my hands. "It's not wrong. It's us. It's real. And it's yours to claim, if you want it." His lips trembled, eyes shining with something fiercer than fear now, resolve. "Then I claim it." And he kissed me again, harder this time, with no hesitation left. Clothes fell away slowly, clumsily, but with an intensity that left no room for doubt. Every button undone was a rule shattered, every layer stripped away was another wall demolished. When we were bare, skin against skin, he froze for a heartbeat, chest heaving, eyes wide with vulnerability. I stroked his cheek gently. "Only as far as you want to go. We don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted, voice low but steady. "For the first time in my life, I want this. Not because I'm told, not because it's expected. Because it's mine. Because it's you." The conviction in his words sent a shiver through me. "Then take it," I whispered. And he did. The night blurred into a whirlwind of heat and trembling hands, of whispered names and broken sighs. Every touch was a confession, every gasp a declaration of freedom. He clung to me as though the world outside no longer existed, as though the only truth was found in the space between our bodies. At one point, he buried his face against my neck, voice cracking as he whispered, "I never thought I'd be allowed this." "You don't need permission," I whispered back. "You only need desire. And it's here. Right now. With me." His body shook with a sob, but his lips found mine again, harder, hungrier, claiming everything he'd been denied. When it was finally over, we lay tangled together in the dim glow of the dying fire. His head rested against my chest, his breath slowly evening out. My fingers traced lazy circles across his back, grounding us both in the silence that followed. "I should be terrified," he murmured after a long while. I kissed the top of his head. "And are you?" He paused, then shook his head faintly. "No. For the first time, I'm not. For the first time, I feel like me." I tightened my arms around him, heart swelling with something deeper than relief, something like love. "Then that's all that matters." He sighed softly, body relaxing against mine. But before sleep claimed him, he whispered one last thing, voice quiet but steady. "I choose you, Daniel. Whatever comes next. I choose you." The rain had slowed to a drizzle by morning, leaving the cabin wrapped in a misty quiet. The world outside was damp and fresh, but inside, the air was thick with unspoken words. I woke first, staring at the wooden beams above me, feeling Elias's steady breath at my side. He was still asleep, his dark lashes resting softly against his cheeks, his hair damp and curling from the night before. For a long moment, I just watched him. There was something so innocent about the way he slept, unguarded, free from the weight of rules and expectations. And yet, last night had shattered any illusion of innocence between us. What we had shared was real. It was impossible to deny. But reality pressed in as hard as the morning light slipping through the cracks in the curtains. I knew the questions that would haunt us. What happens now? What will this mean for him? For me? I shifted, and Elias stirred. His eyes opened slowly, and when they met mine, there was no confusion, no regret. Only warmth. He smiled faintly, a shy curve of his lips, and whispered, "Morning." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Morning. We didn't rush into words. Instead, silence stretched, heavy but not uncomfortable. His hand found mine beneath the blanket, fingers curling around with quiet certainty. And that simple touch, soft, human, steady, was louder than anything we could say. Finally, I broke the quiet. Elias, what does this mean? For you? His gaze held mine, steady now. It means, I can't pretend anymore. His voice was soft but resolute. I know what I feel. I know who I want to be with. Last night didn't confuse me, it gave me clarity. The weight of those words hit me like a storm. I wanted to believe him, but fear still coiled in my chest. But your family, your community, won't they? I trailed off, unable to finish. He squeezed my hand tighter. They'll never understand. Maybe they'll hate me for it. Maybe they'll turn me away. But, he paused, breath unsteady. I'd rather live one honest day with you than a lifetime hiding who I am. I blinked hard, my chest burning. This boy, the quiet Amish soul who had once shown up on my doorstep, drenched and trembling, was now speaking with a strength I hadn't expected. His choice, his courage, humbled me. But the fear didn't vanish. Elias, you're talking about giving up everything you've ever known. Your family, your world? I know. His eyes softened. But I also know what I felt last night. And what I feel right now, sitting here with you. I can't unknow it. I can't go back. I exhaled slowly, torn between hope and dread. What if I'm not enough? At that, he shifted closer, cupping my face in his rough, warm hands. His voice was fierce and tender at once. You're more than enough. You're the only thing that makes sense. The dam inside me cracked. I pulled him against me, kissing him hard, not with the urgency of desire but with the desperate need to anchor ourselves in something real. He kissed back, just as hungry, just as certain. We broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. I don't know what the future looks like, I whispered. Neither do I, he replied. But we'll face it. Together. His words settled into me like sunlight breaking through the mist. It wasn't a promise of perfection. It wasn't a vow that things would be easy. It was something far rarer, truth. The day unfolded slowly after that. We made breakfast together, eggs and toast, simple but shared, and laughed quietly when Elias burned the first slice. He teased me about my terrible coffee-making skills, and for a little while, it felt like we were just two ordinary boys living an ordinary morning. But under the laughter, the tension lingered. Because we knew this fragile bubble couldn't last. The world outside the cabin was waiting. By afternoon, the knock on the cabin door shattered the illusion. My heart jumped, and Elias froze, his eyes wide. Another knock, louder this time. I rose cautiously, every muscle tense. Through the window, I glimpsed a familiar face, Elias's brother, stern and furious, standing in the clearing with two other men from the community. My stomach dropped. They found you, I whispered. Elias went pale but stood tall. I knew they would. Elias, I started, panic surging. He cut me off, voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. No more running. Not from them. Not from myself. I stared at him, my chest aching. This was the climax I had dreaded, the moment when choice collided with consequence. And yet, in his eyes, I saw no hesitation. Only resolve. Another pounding knock. Elias, a voice roared. Come out. The silence between us was thick, trembling. Then Elias reached for my hand, squeezing tight. No matter what happens when I open that door, know this, I love you. Tears blurred my vision, but I nodded. I love you too. And with that, Elias stepped forward. He turned the handle, and the door swung open. Outside, the mist clung to the trees. His brother's eyes burned with rage, the other men grim-faced. Words were already being thrown, accusations, demands, orders. But through it all, Elias stood tall, his hand still holding mine. He didn't cower. He didn't hide. He faced them. And in that defiance, in that act of love and truth, I saw the boy who had walked into my cabin wet and silent become the man who could change everything. The climax wasn't about passion. It wasn't even about the kiss we shared or the night we spent. It was about this moment, Elias choosing to stand, to be seen, to claim love in the face of everything threatening to tear it away. And as their angry voices filled the clearing, I knew one thing for certain: whatever happened next, life would never go back to what it was. The clearing outside my cabin became a battlefield of words, accusations, shame, desperate pleas. Elias's brother shouted about sin and betrayal, while the others stood stiff, demanding he return home. Through it all, Elias never let go of my hand. His grip was a lifeline, steady and unshaken. For a moment, I thought he would yield, step back into the world he had always known. But then Elias lifted his chin and spoke, his voice calm but firm. I can't go back. Not like before. I've found who I am, and who I love. And I won't apologize for it. The silence that followed was heavier than the shouting had been. His brother's eyes blazed, but he could do nothing more than turn away, fury masking hurt. The men left, their footsteps fading into the trees. When they were gone, Elias sagged against me, trembling, but his eyes glowed with something I'd never seen in him before: freedom. The mist lifted slowly, sunlight breaking through the branches. And as we stood there, hand in hand, I realized the truth: our lives from this point forward would be hard, uncertain, maybe even lonely at times. But they would be ours. Honest. That night, as the stars spilled across the sky, Elias whispered against my shoulder, "They'll never understand, but you do. And that's enough." I kissed his temple, holding him close. For the first time, the future didn't terrify me. It felt like a beginning. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true gay love stories that go deeper than words. Your support helps us bring more hidden stories of courage, passion, and forbidden love to life. Comment below what part of Elias's journey moved you most. I read every word.